Okay, let's go ahead and jump into lesson 30. And in lesson 30, we're going to be doing a whole lot of the same thing that we've been doing division across our thousands place, hundreds place, tens place, and ones place. Okay, but today we're going to talk about what happens when there's a zero in the dividend or a zero in the quotient. Now remember, the dividend is that big number that we're dividing, and the quotient is our answer. So by the end of today's lesson, you will be able to solve division problems with a zero in the dividend or in the quotient. So first of all, let's just talk about what you're going to need, okay? So if you're at home, that means you're a B student, and you are going to need to access this video, which you're already doing because you're watching me. You will need to watch the whole video, and you will need to participate using a scratch piece of paper or if you have a whiteboard. And the next time you guys come to school, what I'll do is just go ahead and send a whiteboard home with you so you can have that at your disposal. Okay. You will need to return around 10:30 so we can debrief. So this is a little bit different than what we did last week and what your schedule says. So your schedule says to come back at 10:10. You need to come back at 10:30, okay? I want to give you plenty of time to watch this video, rewind and rewatch if you need to, and complete your problem set and have questions ready, okay? So 10:30 is when you need to log back in to go over today's lesson. All right, so let's go ahead and get started, and let's talk about 804 divided by 4. So what would be our first step to divide 804 by 4? Here you can see I've laid it out in standard algorithm form over here for you. So we would want to start in our hundreds place, right? So we would start here in our hundreds place. And remember, we're going to do our does McDonald's serve cheeseburger, or division, multiplication, subtraction, and then we're going to check and bring down, okay? So what is 800s divided by 4? How many times can 4 go into 8, okay? You could say a multiplication sentence that tells you. So you could say 4 times what equals 8, right? Well, we know, let me go ahead. I'm going to pull up a Jamboard here, so give me just a second. All right, so we have 804, and we're going to look at it together. And we are going to divide by 4. So we said we're going to start in our hundreds place, and we want to know how many times 4 can go into 8. Well, the multiplication sentence would be 2 times 4 equals 8, right? So we're going to take that 2 because we know 4 goes into 8 twice, and it's going to go right on top of our hundreds place. We've done our division. Now we have to do the multiplication, which we just said was 2 times 4. Okay, so 2 times 4 is 8. You're going to take that 8 and put it under the hundreds place. So we did 2 times 4. And now we have to subtract, right? Because that is next in our does McDonald's serve cheeseburgers. We've done the division. Now we've done the multiplication. Now we're doing the subtraction. So I know that in my hundreds place, if I take 8 minus 8, I'm left with 0, right? Okay. Next, I have to bring down a 0. And this is where the lesson kind of comes into play, right? So how can we find, we can't decompose 0, right? So what would we do here? What would we have to do? I want you to think about it for just a second. If we have 0 tens, what would we need to do? Well, 4 can't go into 0, right? So you're simply going to come up here and do a 0. And then you're going to do your multiplication. 0 times 4 is 0. Now you're going to subtract, you get 0. And you still have to check and bring down. So now I've done all my steps. I'm bringing down my ones place. How many times can 4 go into 4? Well, 1 time, right? So there's my division. Multiply 1 times 4, I get 4. If I were to subtract, I get 0. So I know I don't have a remainder. So 201 is my quotient or my answer. Now, how could I check my work to see if I'm right? I could multiply, right? So I'm going to take my quotient, 201, and I'm going to multiply it by 4. And hopefully I'm going to get 804. So I know 1 times 4 is 4. 4 times 0 is 0, and 2 times 4 is 8. I get 804, so I know my answer is correct. Okay, so this is a really important step in the process to check your work, right? Because you don't want to just assume you're right. So hopefully you saw there how we can't really skip over the 0 just because it's a 0, right? We have to really think about it and say, well, I can't take 4 and put it into 0 tens, okay? I have to put my 0 on top and then multiply to get 0 and then bring down my ones place, okay? So when there's no remainder left, you're finished. So great job. So that was just kind of an easy one to get us warmed up. And now I want to talk about what happens if there's a 0 in the quotient. So on this one, there was a 0 in the quotient, but there was also a 0 in the dividend, okay? So you can see what happens when there's a 0 in the dividend, but now I want to talk about what happens when there's a 0 in the quotient. So let's look at a little bit larger number here. We have 4,218, and we're going to divide by 3. I want you to start out on your scratch paper, and I just want you to start with your thousands and hundreds place, okay? So I want you just looking at the 4 thousands and the 2 hundreds, okay? So I'm going to go back to my Jamboard really quick, and while you work at home, I'm going to talk you through it, okay? So we're going to take 4,218, and we're going to divide it by 3. Okay, I said I wanted you to start in your thousands and your hundreds. Okay, so let's look at our thousands first. Here we go. I'm going to do my Does McDonald's serve cheeseburgers? And I'm going to start in my thousands place. So I'm looking at the number 4, 4,000. How many times can I take 3 and put it into 4,000, right? Or I want you to think about 3 times what is 4? Well, hopefully you're saying to yourself, well, Miss Johnson, I can only take the 3 and put it into 4 one time, right? So I'm going to put my 1 up here, and then I've done my division. Now I have to do my multiplication. 1 times 3 is 3. Now I have to do my subtraction. I'm going to take 4 and subtract 3, which is 1. And now I have to check. What do I bring down? Well, I'm going to bring down my hundreds place, which is 2. And now I'm looking at the number 12, okay? So now I'm looking at the number 12 down here. And I'm starting all over again with the division. And now I'm going to say, how many times does 3 go into 12? 3 times what is 12? I know, because I'm good at my multiplication facts, I know that 3 times 4 is 12, okay? So I'm putting that over my hundreds place. I've done my division. Now I'm going to do my multiplication. 4 times 3 equals 12. I know 12 minus 12 is 0. There's my subtraction. And now I have to check. I do have a 1 in my tens place. It's going to come down. Okay, now, this is where things start to get a little bit tricky, right? You're going to look at this and you're saying, okay, so now I'm starting my Does McDonald's serve cheeseburgers all over again, right? And I'm looking at the number 1. And I'm thinking to myself, how many times can 3 go into 1? 110 cannot be divided by 3. So I'm not really sure what to do, right? So what I want to do is think about that place value chart. If I had just one disk in my tens place, I would not be able to distribute it and divide it into 3 groups, right? I would have to say that 3 cannot go into 1, okay? So I'm going to take a 0 and put it up here in my tens place because I can't do anything. So that 0 is going to represent I cannot take 3 and put it into or divide that 10, that 110, I can't divide it into 3 different groups, okay? So 0. I'm going to still do my multiplication. So 0 times 3 equals 0, right? Now I subtract and I know 1 minus 0 is 1. And now I have to check and I have my ones place to still bring down. So now I'm looking at the number 18 down here. How many times can 3 go into 18? 3 times what equals 18? And I know 3 times 6. So I'm going to put the 6 in my ones place. I'm going to multiply. So 6 times 3 is 18. If I had some room down here, I would do 18 minus 18. I subtract, I get 0. Okay, I check, I have nothing left to bring down. And now I'm done. Okay, so my answer is 1,406. Okay. There's a 0 in the quotient, right? We worked through it. We saw that we couldn't take 3 and put it into 1, so I had to record that 0. Now, we have to check our work, right? We have to go in and check our work. How can I check my work? Well, I can check my work by taking my quotient and multiplying it by my divisor, or the number I'm dividing by. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to the side, and I'm going to say 1,406 multiplied by 3 is hopefully going to give me 4,218. So let's check it out. If you do this multiplication and it's not right, then you know you've made a mistake somewhere and you can kind of retrace your steps, okay? So I know 3 times 6 is 18. So I'm going to put my 1 or my 8 here and carry my 1. 0 times 3 is 0, but I have my 1 to add, so I'll bring my 1 down. 3 times 4 is 12, so I'm going to put my 2 here and carry my 1. And then 1 times 3 is 3, plus my 1 is 4. And I can see that my answers do match, okay? I got 4,218, which is my dividend, so I know that I'm right, okay? So hopefully this lesson has not been too terribly hard for you, okay? We've seen that you can have a 0 in the dividend, and you can also have a 0 in your quotient. So this is me just showing you the work as we go. Okay, so that was a pretty quick lesson, and now you're ready for the problem set, okay? I am going to show you what I want you to do on the problem set. What I want you to do is work on the problem set, and then when we come back together at 10:30, we're going to go over the problem set as a class. We're going to talk about the lesson, and then we are going to do the exit ticket. So it's a pretty normal flow, right? This is how our class normally flows. So what you'll need to do is go into your classwork, okay? We are in a fresh semester, so you're going to look for week 1, which is January the 19th through the 22nd, and we didn't have school on Monday, right? So we're starting on a Tuesday. Here's all your Tuesday work. Here is your problem set. It says, it's always going to be important for you guys to read the instructions, okay? Group A students will complete the problem set online after the lesson 30, the lesson 30 lesson. So I will put a link to this video, which will be in a Nearpod down here. I haven't done that yet because I'm recording it right now. You'll watch the video first, then you're going to come into this problem set, okay? So let's pull up the problem set and take a quick look at it. So number 1, all it's wanting you to do is divide. If you notice, in number 1, there are zeros in our dividend, okay? So this is going to give you practice with zeros in the dividend. I want you guys to do number 1, number 2, and then I want you to do number 3, okay? I'm guessing that there's probably going to be a 0 in the quotient on number 3. So 1, 2, and 3. Now look at the instructions here. It says check your solutions by multiplying. So each of these are worth 2 points. 1 point for dividing, 1 point for checking your work, all right? Now you're going to scroll down. So so far I have you doing number 1, number 2, number 3. I'm sorry. Yes, 1, 2, and 3. And then I want you to do 8, 9, and 10, larger numbers. And then let's try number 11, okay? Number 11 says find the quotient and the remainder for 3,131 divided by 3. So you're going to divide, and it sounds like there's going to be a remainder. And then on B, it's asking you to answer this question. How could you change the digit in the ones place of the whole so that there would be no remainder? So what could you change this 1 to in order for there to be no remainder? And I want you to tell me how you determine that, okay? So that's a higher level thinking question. I love that question. It's requiring you to do a little extra thinking, okay? So I will put the numbers that you need to do in the instructions on Google Classroom. But good luck, and make sure that you rejoin us at 10:30 and you're prepared to participate and talk about what you've learned today. All right.